Hello and welcome to the video. In this video we're going to take a look at this thing here. This is my new EMAX Baby Hawk R 3-inch version. Now I wasn't bothered about getting one of these. I actually really like the Fly model, the 150 that we looked at a while ago. That flies and behaves exactly like a 5-inch model, and I thought I'd kind of found my perfect small brushless quad. Until, that is, I was at an event a couple of months ago. That was the Mini Air Show 4 down near Winchester here in the UK. And that turned out to be a very expensive show for me because I kept seeing things that I really wanted. So this Baby Hawk is one of them, and actually I've also got a right-wing mini Drac here as well that I'll be building in another series. So I've spent quite a bit of money getting all these really cool toys that all of these guys had that I hadn't played with. Now this is a great option for those of you that want a quad that's going to fly beautifully and behave like a 5-inch quad, just like the Fly 150, but it's a slightly different setup, and I do like the way this thing looks and flies. But before I get into flying footage and those kind of bits and pieces, we'll just go into the specs. I'll show you how to set it up, what it looks like in beta flight, and then I'll show you what it's like actually in the air. EMAX at the moment do seem to be making some very nice models. For those of you that watch the channel, you remember that we had the EMAX Hawk 2. Now the EMAX Hawk was a beautiful model. Unfortunately I don't have it here on the desk. I've already given it away. I think it was a Patreon giveaway that I did a couple of months ago. But that was a fabulous ready to fly quadcopter. So the guys at EMAX are definitely putting their thinking caps on when they're bringing out these little models, and this little fella is no exception. There's actually a couple of different versions. I've got the 3-inch here. The one I saw at the show that the guys were flying around in the evening was actually the one with the smaller props. That's the 4-blade props. I've gone for the 3-inch just because the less blades you have on your prop, the more efficiency that you get. So I'm hoping that this is going to be a little bit happier. Also, this one supports 4S and 3S batteries, and I'll show you and talk a little bit about what difference there is between using those two LiPo batteries in a bit. So on this little fella, it has an RS1106 4500 kV motors with these 3-inch props. It has a little mini Magnum tower inside. It has a pretend FrSky receiver that's running the D8 protocol, so be aware of that, and I'll talk about that when we come to bind and set it up. The normal camera angle at the front is going to be from 25 to 55 degrees. I've actually dremeled out a little bit of this chin piece at the front to allow me to drop the camera a little bit lower as well, because this is a really nice little quad for people to practice FPV on, because it's pretty hard to break it. It does come pre-tuned, so the Betaflight setup should be pretty sorted out. Integrated on-screen display, 3mm carbon fibre arms, 136mm wheelbase. Net weight is around 85.5 grams, and then you've got the battery on top as well, so well under the 250 gram limit. The 4-in-1 ESCs on this thing are 12 amp, and they do support BL Heli S, so setup is going to be very straightforward. The VTX on the top is a 40-channel VTX, switchable between 25 and 200 milliwatts with the little dipole antenna that's stuck out the top. Unboxing is pretty straightforward. You just have the model set into the foam. Then there's a couple of sets of props on the right hand side. Again, I've gone for the 3-inch version here, which is why it might look different to some of the other videos you may have seen. And there's also a couple of bags of bits with things like the joystick for changing the settings on the camera, and also all the screws you need to pop the props on. So there isn't really any building at all. The only thing that I did struggle with is to get to the little button that you need to press on the receiver to start the bind process. You do have to remove this top canopy. To remove it, you have to undo 4 screws. There are the 2 screws here either side of the camera. They're the ones that hold the camera in place, but you need to unscrew those completely. And then you also need to undo these 2 screws at the back that goes into these 2 long pillars. Once you've got those 4 undone, then the whole kind of carapace lifts off, and you can get into the bits and pieces inside. You can still easily get to the button with a pointy stick for the VTX, but you do need to press and hold the button to bind it, and you will have to apply main power. The receiver doesn't seem to be powered from the USB socket, so you're going to have to find yourself a little battery with the XT30 adapter, plug it in while you've got the bind set, and bind it to your radio. Be aware it is D8 protocol compatible though, so you may want to swap this over if your FrSky radio or OpenTX powered radio doesn't support the DX protocol. Maybe the EU box was ticked when you flash your radio, so you've lost that ability. It might be easy to just pop a simple little real FrSky receiver in here instead. In beta flight, this is what it looks like straight out the box. It's running an Omnibus target, a little bit old, 3.2.3. I may upgrade it to 3.3, but at the moment, because it's flying so nicely, I'm not really too bothered about sorting that out. The only thing that's set up is UART3 is enabled for S-Bus, and then everything else looks pretty straightforward. DShock 600 is set for the ESCs, 4K gyro and PID loop frequencies. Air mode's turned on full time, so is anti-gravity, so is dynamic filtering. There are some modes set up here by default, so we have an arming switch, and then auxiliary 2 is set up for angle and horizon, and there's also fantastically a little beeper on here too, which is very needed. If you are landing anything but freshly cut grass, it just disappears, so being able to sound the buzzer, and it's a nice decently loud one as well, will help you find it in the grass. In the OSD, it was set up pretty well too, so it wasn't that everything turned on or nothing turned on. I just moved all these pieces around to make sure it was how I liked it. So now we've talked about how to set all that up, and again, if you're interested in how to set up a ready to fly model in Betaflight, I do have an entire video. I'll link to it here. Let's go out and talk about what it's like to fly. And the answer to that question is it flies phenomenally well. Any of you that already have had a Baby Hawk or either the smaller version or the 3-inch version will know it flies beautifully. The tune is very good. You might have to tweak your rates a little bit, but you forget it's a little quad and you push it and fly it like it's a well set up 5-inch quad. And that's a testament to how well this thing is set up. And that again was something that I really loved about the ViFly X150. That again was one of those little quads that you forgot was a little quad because it just flew so brilliantly. As you can see from the images, the camera is working beautifully well. That little Foxair unit is fab. The FPV system is great. We haven't got any breakup. I have gone and popped a Bandicoot antenna. This is the linear patch antenna on my goggles, and I'm flying here with that linear patch antenna and also one of the Menace RC Pagodas on my goggles using a true D FPV setup, and I'm getting fantastic images. Ridiculous amounts of power. I've been flying mine on 4S and the hover point is well below a quarter throttle, so it has stupid amounts of power on 4S, but on 3S it still flies really well. It's a little bit calmer. I'm flying it with a 550 milliamp hour 4S pack, and that pack is lasting me just over 4.5 minutes. So it could definitely support, with the power on 4S, a much larger pack, and I'm tempted to get hold of a couple of maybe 650, maybe even 850 milliamp hour packs that should push me up to the 6-minute range. So in summary, what do I think? Well, I think it's fantastic. There aren't many things I say that about, but this is one of those models that if you've been umming and ahhing about whether or not to invest in one, my advice would be take the plunge, get hold of one, you won't regret it. It flies brilliantly, and this little quadcopter gives fun and enjoyment way over its physical size. It is very tough. I've bounced and flipped it around. Because it's smaller, I'm quite happy to shoot for gaps and play around when I'm flying around in the fields that I wouldn't attempt in a larger quad. And because it just bounces, it's great. That onboard buzzer works really nicely, so if it does end up in slightly long grass and appears to have disappeared out of sight, sounding that buzzer will get you pretty close. The setup and tune is fab out the box. Again, I think most pilots will only want to tweak the rate so that the flips and rolls in acro mode is where they like it to be. But apart from that, and maybe the odd little tweak to the on-screen display, that's about all you need to worry about. Only a handful of things to consider here with this thing. It is the D8 protocol on that non-FrSky receiver. You could just swap that out for a real FrSky receiver, one of those really small XSRs or similar. but if you have D8 on your radio, you'll be able to buy into it without a problem. I can understand why people think it's expensive, it's over £100, but this is a little pocket rocket that will give you all the fun of a 5-inch racing quad in a much smaller chassis that's very portable. And the other thing about this as well is how unbelievably quiet it is. With these 3-inch props, you can't hear it once it's about 20-25 feet away from you. So you can absolutely fly this in places where larger quadcopters would maybe attract unwanted attention or limit your flying experience. So a big thumbs up to EMAX again. Not only do they make blooming nice motors, they seem to have got the hang of making ready to fly quadcopters too. So this is one of those models that's going to be kept at the top of the pile, to be grabbed when I get a spare 20 minutes to go down to the field and do some flying. If you found that video useful or like the content, then please hit the like and subscribe button down below. If you want to go the extra step, you can become a Patreon of the Painless 360 channel and help provide support for what I do here. All the videos created here are put into playlists, so if you're interested in a particular topic, have a look at the playlist, and they all are organised in there to make them easier to use. If you're not sure if there's a video for your particular problem or topic you want to know more about, then add Painless 360 to the Google search term that you're interested in, and that should find the video, article or content about the particular thing that you're interested in having a look at.